before we start, let me just quickly walk through the Blackboard page. So you should see when you first log in to the course, it'll be like this, and by now you should have read this class structure assignment post right here. If not, please make sure to watch it so you know when your videos will be uploaded and when you need to turn in your videos. And for those of you that were wondering where syllabus is, make sure you just go to the left hand bar and it's right there. The place that you will visit the most is learning modules. Each week there will be a folder, and here's the slide that you can download that I already uploaded for week 1. So I will also upload the teaching videos here, as well as the pages you'll need for this week's exercise, since a lot of you probably have older editions, so just make sure to double check which exercise you're working on. Alright, so let's jump right into your first thing right here. If you look to the left, we're going to learn B flat harmonic minor scale. So let's focus on the fingering first. B flat harmonic minor, the black keys, the notes are B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G flat, and then A natural, B flat. So pay attention to the black keys versus white keys. You start on finger 2. Always remember your point is you don't want to put your thumb on any black keys because it's one of our shortest fingers. Okay, so 2, 1. You can also follow this picture right here as you're practicing. Finger 2, 1. For 2 black keys, just use finger 2 and 3 on both hands also. Then finger 1 again on your white key. Alright, so the next thing you'll see are the 3 black key groups, which you're going to use these 3 fingers on both hands, except because it's harmonic minor, you're going to have this A natural in here. So the rule is you'll use these 3 black keys when you these 3 fingers when you see 3 black keys, but just make sure you have to play a natural. So this is the right hand fingering for B flat harmonic minor scale 1 octave. 2, 1. 2 black keys, 2, 3. Finger 1 on white key. Now you're in the 3 black key groups. The same going back down. Finger 1. Now you're going to 2 black keys group. Make sure you're using these 2 fingers. 3, 2. Finger 1 and then end on 2. So without pause, let me play one more time. So 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2. Alright, so in order to play 2 or more octaves, just keep on going the same pattern and continue. So here it is. Finger 1 on white key, then you go back to the 2 black keys now. Alright, so the same fingering is going down. Let me just briefly talk about left hand fingerings. So same as your right hand, you start with finger 2, 1. Okay, now you're in the 2 black key groups, finger 2 and 3. Finger 1 on white key, F again. So this is the one where you have to flip to finger 4 because you're now on the 3 black key groups, which you're using these 3 fingers. The same thing, just remember there's that A natural, then you'll go back to the B flat with finger 2. So 2, 1, 2 black key groups, 3, 2, 1. Now 3 black key groups, make sure you're using these 3 fingers. Finger 4, 3, 2. Alright, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4. 2 black keys, 1, 2 black keys, 1, 2 black keys. Alright, so I'm talking about 2 black keys versus 3 black keys, even though you're playing, not all 3 black keys here, but this will help especially when you're putting hands together, because they pretty much are mirroring each other. Finger 2, 1. Now 2 black keys for both hands. You can practice this way too. And then thumb on F, 3, thumb on C. So later on we'll go to other keys where you just really have to pay attention to what white keys you're playing with thumb. So let me just play through all 4 octaves of the B flat harmonic minor. Hands together. group, you'll have to play not just a harmonic minor, you have to play 3 other arpeggios. So let's start from B flat triad arpeggios. Your keys are B flat, D flat, and F. So same principle, thumb on the white key. So if you are doing thumb on right here, the easiest way to start is finger 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Alright, so left hand, like I said, there's mirroring a lot in all these scales. Thumb on your white key, then you can just start with 3, 2, 1. And always remember, for scales and arpeggios, you just repeat the fingering pattern. So 3, 2, 1. Make sure to do 4 octaves for each one of these exercises. Now let's look at dominant 7. So make sure you're playing the starting on the right note. So scale degree 5 in B flat would be F, a perfect fifth above. So your dominant 7 chord, you need to start on F. So the notes are F, A, C, E flat. Since there's only one black key, you can just use this fingering. Don't skip any fingers until you reach the pattern again. So 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. F again, start on finger 1. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're going downward also. Alright? Let's look at left hand. You can just easily use finger 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The next finger you have to use is finger 4 because you use finger 4 on A. So let me show you the fingerings. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So make sure when you're practicing you have really strong fingers and play to the bottom of the key. And also make sure you're playing to the center of the keys for note accuracy. Alright, so one last arpeggio. So diminished 7, so same thing. Diminished 7 you have to find from scale degree 7 from B flat. So just pretty much go to the leading tone, which is A in this case. So half step below, that's scale degree 7, A natural. So you have to build diminished 7. So the notes are A, C, E flat, G flat. Okay. So you can look at the PDF. These are the fingerings. So right hand 1, 2, 3, 4. When you go back to A again, you just repeat the same fingerings. So here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finger 5 for the last note, and then go back down. Left hand, start on 2, 1, 4, 3. Make sure when you flip to the E flat is finger 4 because you have to get back to 2 on A. So here we go. 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So this week, focus on doing hand separate for all 4 of these until you're really comfortable, and make sure to try hands together slowly. Alright, so let's look at your next one. Modulation to dominant key. This is on page 169 if you have the new edition. If not, make sure to check go back to each module. I will upload all the pages that you will need so you don't get messed up with which pages we're working on. So it's at the bottom of the page right here. So just make sure to play through this chord progression so you're used to the sound and even the fingerings. Okay, so let's just do left hand first. On C, in C majors. 1, 5, 5, oboe step. Okay, either way for efficiency, you can just play this G up here, or if you like, you can play exactly as how it's written. So make sure you have to change your fingerings like this. 5, 1, 5, 5, 4. Two options for you, whichever you like. Right hand, make sure when you're in chordal shapes like this, where the 2 notes at the bottom are closer, you're using fingers 1, 2, 5. As you're playing chord progression, focus on which note is moving. So for example, from your first chord to second chord, the outer voices E and C are moving inward, whereas the middle note you'll see stays. Okay, middle note stays. You see the G? Stays pretty much. And then right there it moves. So from this chord, actually the note that actually moved is the middle one, only one. Okay? Alright. So now look down at the piano. I'll just play through it. Fingers 1, 2, 5. And then these two notes move in half step. 1, 2, 4. Go back to the same thing. Okay, now you just need to move one step up in the middle note to 1, 3, 5. And then parallel down. Parallel down. The last chord is fingers 1, 2, 5. Okay, so let's do right hand one more time. 1, 2, 5. Moving inward, back, middle note up, parallel, parallel. Now 1, 2, 5. Okay, so make sure to practice hands together. Alright, so this week just focus on doing this exercise in the original key C. Next time we'll talk about transposition to a different key. Okay, now let's look page 171. We're going to do harmonization that has the modulation from the main key to the dominant key. So page 171, number 1, this one, the top one right here. Okay, so this one you have to do 3 voice texture, meaning your left hand, you're only playing the bass line, one note. Exactly the chord symbol that's written up here. Then the right hand you have to play 2 notes. So in case you don't really know jazz symbol that well, let me just briefly walk through. So F, when it's just a simple letter, that means it's a major chord. So in this case, F major, F A C. Okay, C, C major, C E G. D with the M, that means D minor chord. So D, F, A. Alright, B flat, you already know, B flat major. As you're playing chords, make sure you know, okay, white key versus black key, your topography. So this one right here, probably a lot of you are not familiar. The F means which chord you're in. The slash C, C means that's your bass note. So it's kind of like if you do Roman numeral, that's your second inversion. So F, A, C, except with your C as your bass note. So meaning right here, your left hand needs to play C. Okay? Alright, so let's just go through C, F major chord, F, A, C, G7, G7 slash B. So now you know it's a G7 chord, but your B is the bass note. Okay? Alright, and then C major chord, D minor slash F. D minor chord, first inversion, that's when you have your F at the bottom. C major with G at the bottom, so this is your... Alright, so I'm walking through it kind of fast, but one way to help is just write the chords on a separate sheet, write all the notes out so you're used to it, and just practice, first of all, knowing what notes are in each chord. And I also input a link that will help with chord construction, so you get to know the chords really easily. And it's in a PDF under the page called Jazz Harmonization. There's this page called Chord Construction. It'll help. So for example, this exercise right here, F-A-C, we know it's a major triad. How would you alter the note to make it augmented? Which we wouldn't probably see as much in harmonization, but it'll help with theory and ear training, so let's take a look. Okay, so we can alter probably the top note, make it a sharp. There you go. Minor triad, DFA. Make sure after you construct the chords, also play on the keyboard so you're used to the sound and where you're putting your fingers. Okay, so this one is minor triad. It's you don't need to do any alteration. There you go. Alright, so let's just do one last one, just so you know you're used to how to do this exercise. Without any alteration, this is the notes. Half diminish, you need the B flat. So you'll see the notes turn blue when you move to the corresponding note. Alright, so that's an exercise you can do to help with recognizing chords faster. So let's get back to page 171, number 1, how you would play this, okay? So first way I usually suggest is just play the right hand melody as it's written out with the left hand bass. So you'll have to read the top line in your right hand and read the symbol up here to figure out what note you're going to play in your left hand. So like this. Left hand C, now D, finger 1 because you have to prepare for a big jump, and then B flat, C as your low note, now F, G, C, now B, C, F is your low bass note, G. So that's the first step I would suggest doing. Right hand fingering is just always plan ahead. You see, we stay pretty close at the bottom of the staff, but then you jump. It goes higher and higher. So focus on the contour so you know, okay, if you need to move your hands up, okay? And once you've done playing through the chords and then do the right hand highest note with your bass line, try to add in the chord and think about which note you want to do. For example, F, A, C. Alright, perfect. You have all 3 notes. C major chord, you have C at the bottom. G is your melody, so you want to add notes underneath the melody. You have C, G, now we just need E for C major. Alright, for D minor chord, D is your bass, F is your melody. We're just missing A. Okay, so first 2 measures. Which is F, so there you go. F major chord, but second inversion, so your C is at the bass. F major chord, so you probably need to do the C at the bottom, or either way, this one works too. Then G, make sure you have the G as your bass, this is your melody note, then your 7th is the F. Out for practice, feel free as you plan on how you can play it, fit in the notes, but later on erase the notes so you can, you know, have a better training of how you can just read chord symbols and be able to harmonize it. This measure, second to the last measure, you'll notice there's the parallel, so my right hand parallels down and back up. Alright, let's look at the next thing, chord progression. Page 173. So it's right here. All you need to do is play through all 12 measures. Later on in future chapters, you will have to do a lot more chord progressions in these jazz chords, so get used to your fingerings and how you move from note to note. Okay, so let's look at left hand first. Make sure, since it's a pattern going on, descending, you'll see, focus on doing the same fingerings. It's finger 4 on D, 1, 5. Now, going from this to the next chord progression, you start on the same note, 4, 1, 5, then 4, 1, 5. The A flat now becomes finger 4, 4, 1, 5. One thing to pay attention to, you'll see there's a lot of theme going on, is playing piano, you want to focus on whether you're moving towards the black key or moving out of the black key. So you'll notice left hand, you start on, both hands actually, start on purely white keys. We're at C major, right? Now we're going to B flat, so there's more black keys. Now A flat. But then we're gradually moving back out to white keys, at least in the left hand, okay? Alright, so do left hand first. Now let's look at right hand. Same as the chord progression we were just looking at probably a couple pages ago, is focus on how your notes move, which notes are moving and what fingers to use. So first chord to second chord, you'll notice the top two notes are moving down, both down. And then from the second chord to third chord, the top stays, whereas your thumb needs to move down a half step. So the fingering for the first chord is fingers 1, 3, 5. Okay. The top two notes move down, and then to the third chord, your thumb moves down. So one good way of practice is hold on to the notes that don't change. For example, first chord, second chord, third chord. So you're used to, okay, which fingers are actually moving. Okay, so let's do it one more time. Now I'm going to play all three notes together. Sounding. Alright, so the next step you need to know is how you move from this C major 9 chord to the C minor 9 chord. So you'll notice the bottom two notes, your fingers 1 and 3, moves a half step down, both of them. That becomes your minor 9 chord. And then once you find this new starting point for this chord, then you just replicate the same thing. The top two notes down a half step. Okay, so let me do the first 4 measures right hand. Top two notes down, thumb down a half step, and hold for 4 beats. Now to go to major to minor 9th, you move the bottom two half step down. So now top two down, now thumb down a half step. Alright, so make sure to do hand separate first and get used to it. And your goal is to be able to kind of have this muscle memory. And so once you're done doing hand separate, this week focus on hand separate. If you can, try putting hands together. Okay? Alright, so let's look at the next exercise, sight reading and transposition. So page 183. So we're going to look at the top one as sight reading. You don't need to send in the sight reading part of this, since we'll be talking through this, and this will be your exercise to practice at home of things you can look for in sight reading. But you do need to transpose this to D major and send it in your video submission. So when you're sight reading, things to look for is, first of all, your clef. This one, both hands are in treble clef, so make sure you're reading them at the right place. Another thing is look for any tricky spots, for example, accidentals, or if you have any jumps. So you'll notice, just skim through it real fast, you'll notice first line and the second system, they seem to have similar shape, except they start on different position. And another thing you look for is, make sure you're reading like relationship notes to notes, instead of like reading every single note, because you want to learn what notes you can omit, what notes you just really have to play, and then in your proficiency exam, your whole point is you have to continue going. It's kind of like when you're in, if you're in orchestra or in choir, if you make any mistake, no one's gonna stop and wait for you to fix anything. So always keep that pause and continue going. Okay, so this one, if you look through the first system, your right hand barely needs to move, because you see the C, the lowest note stays until the very last part. So it might not be too tricky to read the right hand. You just need to focus on, okay, how the notes move, what finger to use. Make sure to follow the fingerings also. When you jump to the second system, that's the part you really want to pay attention to, especially later on when you're doing transposition, okay? And chords. So this one is based upon the transposition from the original key to dominant key that you were working on. So get used to playing that chord progression once more, so you know the sound and then what chords you're going to be playing. Okay, so take some time and look through, pause the video and take probably like 30 seconds to a minute, look through and see if you can play through it once and see how your sight reading goes. Alright, so this is what it sounds like. D7. So there Also remember, sight reading, you do not have to play allegretto, like for example in this case, because your whole point is not to play up to tempo. It's sight reading, so don't worry about playing slower. Pick a tempo that you feel comfortable, that will allow you enough time to look for what's coming up next. All right, in terms of transposition, you probably have already done a lot of transposition in your previous PCL classes, so focus on, okay, first of all, we start in C major and we end in G major in the original key. Now we're going to transpose up a step, whole step to D major. So I know everyone has different experiences, but if you think more about chords, okay, now you know we end on the dominant chord here, then we go back to C, now we go to D, so that's the secondary dominant of G, right? Alright, if that's the way you think, then great. As you're playing D major, just think about the relationship with chords. There's another way is you can look at, okay, we're moving from C to D, so as you're reading, transpose everything up a whole step. And just remember D major, think about the key center. What black keys do you have? D major, you have F sharp, C sharp. Meaning every time you're playing, for example, your very first note, E will become an F sharp, okay? Every time there is an accidental in your transpose key, you will also have an accidental, okay? So another part that you might need to think about before you transpose is, like, for example, right there, what would be your new chord, okay? The D7 in this measure, when you transpose up a whole step, becomes the D7. Alright, so I'll play through the same excerpt but in D major and modulate to A major. This is what you'll need to practice and send me a recording. Okay, here we go. G sharp. Okay, look ahead where you need to jump. Okay, next measure you have the E7. Alright, so take some time, look over the transposition, and if you need, just play the chords out so you know, okay, for example, E7, that's the chord, and then you have to end on A major, okay? Alright, so this next one, right below Russian melody, you will have to look over this. This is an easier excerpt, and take about 30 seconds to 60 seconds. Look through anything that's tricky, and then you'll have to record your very first playthrough, as I wrote it down here. First playthrough of your sight reading. Don't worry about making any mistakes, because I won't be grading on how you do. I just really want to get a feel of where you guys are at for your sight reading, so you'll receive full credit for submitting this exercise, okay? As we look through, you'll notice pretty much measure 1, measure 5, same. The only difference is the last measure in both systems, so this is actually pretty easy. And so, yeah, have fun, and we'll see how you guys are in your sight reading, so I can probably change a little bit of your future assignments. Alright, so next thing, jazz harmonization. So this one you don't have to send in anything for your assignment, but do look through. So because next week we'll talk through the chords. Page 178. Okay, so number 2, this one right here. These are different chords. We'll talk through them next time, but try and look through all the chord symbols so you know what chords you already know, what you have questions, so next time it'll be easier as I walk through the chords. Same thing, spell all the notes out on a separate sheet of paper, or just write it on top, like on each chord, okay? Just go from the root to up, so focus on what note you would need. For example, G6, so it's a G major chord, but you need the 6 above, which is E. Okay, and then yeah, we'll talk more about it next time. This is the page I was talking about, where there's a link to the chord construction exercise, and I have already constructed a specific exercise for you where there are 20 questions for you. So make sure to go over there and play around with it. Alright, okay, one last thing. Page 204 is our repertoire. We're gonna do Minuet by Mozart. Okay, so this is Minuet by Mozart. This week I want you to focus on doing hands separate. Okay, so for your video recording, you don't need to do hands together. You actually don't need to submit this recording, but start working on it so you don't procrastinate, and then when you have to do your exam, it'll be easy. So let's look at left hand first. First of all, we have one black key, one flat, B flat. So left hand, just pay attention to the fingerings and plan ahead. So of course we start on 2 as written, and then you'll notice measure 3, you have to jump to B flat and there's an octave. And then measure 4, there's another octave. Okay? Alright, so let's just do 4 measures at a time, left hand. If you want to play through with me, great. If not, you can pause the video and do it on your own. Jump. Okay, these big jumps seem to be tricky sometimes, so just make sure you're used to, okay, C octave to F octave. Alright, so let's just make sure you do hand separate first. Alright, let's look at measure 5. You'll notice measure 5 and 6 repeats again, 7 and 8 in both hands actually. Yeah. Alright, so here we go. It's pretty simple. Left hand is just within your C 5-finger pattern. Alright, so the last 2 measures. Here again we have octaves from dominant to tonic. Okay, so finger 4, 1, 5. Now, a good way of practicing is just block things. Okay, so play through the left hand melody, left hand accompaniment on its own from the top. Okay, and then let's look at right hand. Pretty much just follow the fingerings and learn the notes right, okay? And then this one is just a little bit different because you have triplets and then 4 16 notes. So here we go. Finger 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, trill. Let's just do 4. Okay. One easy way to play this ornamentation right here is imagine you have to put an accent on the D instead of the E. Then it'll be easier because your goal is to go. Okay, and then accent. Alright, now measure 5. You'll notice your finger 1 stays on G, right? So this is an exercise where when you're playing, you're almost like rotating the doorknob. Okay, so let me do one more time with left hand with the correct rhythm. So you'll notice both hands are actually moving opposite direction. Hopefully that will help with your practicing. Let's look at the rest of the piece, the last 2 measures in your right hand. Now we go back to triplet. You don't need to move your hands at all. So just finger 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2. So there it is. Okay, so here is the entire piece, hands together. Skip the repeat for now. So those are all the things that you should work on this week. But make sure to check this last page in the PDF. You do not have to send in recordings of every single thing we talk about this week. Some of them you will have to do them next week or later on for hands together. So make sure to check that. So let me just play through everything you will need to do. Okay, first thing is your B flat harmonic minor, group, scales, and 3 arpeggios, 4 octaves. So B flat. Okay, sorry, let me start. Okay, so this week, all you need to do is your B flat, harmonic, groups, scales, and arpeggios. Make sure to do 4 octaves. B flat triad. Then the dominant 7 chord, starting on F. Diminished 7th chord, starting on scale degree 7, A natural. Alright, so next thing, page 169, the chord progression. So here it is. Harmonization with 3 voice texture on page 171, number 1. Okay, next thing, page 173, chord progression. So just need to play through. This week, if you can do hands separate, that'll be great. Don't worry about doing hands together this week yet for your video submission, but I'll play through hands together. Make sure to do it with your pedal also. Alright, so number 4, sight reading, page 183, number 6. Make sure to record your first time of this one and send it to me, okay? Alright, one last thing is your transposition of page 183, number 5, this top one, to D major. And then you'll modulate to A major. Here we go. Alright, so that's it for this week. Let me know if you have any questions. You can just under each module there's the ask the question, or you can email me, okay?